Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of Index Office Hours. Today is the 11th of February, and this is Index Office Hours 194. Thank you, Juan, for posting the agenda in the chat. For anyone who is new to Index Office Hours, this is the town square where graph ecosystem participants come together and discuss the most important and relevant topics for indexes. As always, this is a conversation, and we do love participation, so please do get involved in today's conversation via voice or text. You have the text box in the corner there, which many of you are already utilizing. And if you are having any challenges with your mic, do let me know and I will get that sorted for you. As a reminder, this is a conversation that's going to be recorded and posted onto public channels like YouTube. So if you are concerned about privacy, please bear that in mind. And with that, let's get into today's agenda. So as always, for the opening remarks, I give a shout out to the latest 𝗨𝗀𝗳𝗂𝗧 episode. And today is no different. Thank you for posting again, Juan. Always super fast with the links. Really appreciate that. And we have Aya. I am not brave enough to pronounce the surname, so I will stop myself from the Oh gosh, why do you guys always want me to do it? Okay, I'll try. I'll try. It seems Slavic, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. Okay, here goes. It's my favorite bit. Okay, uh, Ka- Kanatorovich? Kanatorovich? Kantorovich? Kanatorovich. Kantorowicz, I think. Okay. Kanatorovich. Okay, cool. Where's the extra? I don't know, Juan. You tell me. I'm terrible at pronouncing people's names. Oh man. Okay, so it seems to be, I mean, the consensus in the chat is that it's Kanatorowicz or Kanatorovich, which I think is a fair way to uh, um, pronounce it. Please let me know if, oh my God, the British can't pronounce. Yes, I don't think it's a British thing. I think it's me. I'm just really bad at it myself. If anyone knows how to pronounce it correctly, please do. Oh, Worcestershire. Okay, fair enough. That's fair enough. That is very confusing. I will yield on that. We do have a few strange pronunciations in British English. Tuesday. So yeah, if anyone is aware as to how to pronounce it, please do let me know. And also curious as to where the surname's from as well, if anyone has that information. But moving on, she is the co-founder and co-CEO of August, and is anyone who is a long-time listener of 𝗨𝗀𝗳𝗂𝗧, they'll know that she is a returning guest. She was on episode 66 in May of 2022. And August is an institutional grade DeFi platform. And she talks a bit about her experience building this product. She also talks a bit about ETF adoption, institutional DeFi infrastructure, the evolution of the crypto markets, and of course, where the graph fits into all of that. So if you are interested to learn more about all of those topics there and a bit about her background, her company, go ahead and check out the episode there. Okay, wonderful. Without further ado, now I will hand over to Anna for our regularly scheduled Repo Watch section.
Thank you, Abel, and apologies for my very raspy voice today. It seems like I'm losing it. Okay, so on Repo Watch this week, we have had a new release from Get on execution layer clients. This is version 1.15.0. This release introduces breaking changes to the database schema that requires a full resync when downgrading. So you need to be very careful if you need to downgrade once you've upgraded to this version. It also implements some key features from the Prague fork, which are crucial to the blockchain operations. And of course, this is a crucial upgrade and it requires a lot of attention. Then we have a new release from 𝗨𝗀𝗂𝗟𝗶. This is version 1.8.8. This release contains the latest update that sets L2 migration block for the Baklava testnet. at block number 28308600. And this release can be skipped for mainnet and does not introduce any critical changes, so apply for testnet only. Then we have also two new releases from Arbitrum Nitro. The first release is version 3.5.0, which is a major release that introduces Time Boost, which is a new transaction ordering policy with an express lane and sealed bid auction mechanism. This implementation contains breaking changes that require replication of the default entry point flags if overwriting the Docker image entry point, and it also includes some various fixes and performance improvements. When you're upgrading to this release, make sure you read the release notes carefully. And then we have latest version from Arbitrum Nitro, which is 3.5.1, which includes important updates for validators. Um, and that's about it this week. Let me see. Any? Yeah, that's all from me. Abel, go back to pronouncing stuff. Thank you.
Sure thing. I'll try and pronounce it before we do protocol watch. Quinoa, I think, is pretty straightforward. Okay, anyways, Juan, get to protocol watch.
Sure, no worries. Okay, getting into protocol watch for foreign governance, we didn't have anything, but it seems there are some disputes that are going to be created in the forums now. I've seen one already being added, but we're gonna be covering them next week, it seems, because they're just creating the forum post now. For forum research, we have, as always, the core dev updates that includes Edge and Node, GraphOps, Pinax, Semiotic, Messari, Streaming Fast, and Geo. All of those are pretty lengthy, so we're not going to go in depth about them, but they are all linked in the agenda. So if you're interested in any of the different core developers and what they're doing currently, you can check it out in the agenda or in the forum if you want. Then we have the contracts repository. There are a bunch of open and merged PRs. Most of them are either new features or fixes or chores for Horizon most of the time, as well as some CI issues that were fixed. And then we have the network subgraphs. There has been an update to the core network subgraph, as you might be aware, which adds a small feature called payment sources that can be used to differentiate, payments from different addresses for query fees mostly. That's pretty much it for Protocol Watch. So I'm gonna be handing over to Abel.
Thank you, kind sir. I just did some Googling and I totally messed that up. It's hyperbole. Thank you for correcting me, folks. Okay, cool. So unfortunately, we had a last-minute cancellation today, but we have the good fortune of Rem, who's decided to step in and fill in for us and help us understand the aspects of protocol economics in greater detail. So obviously, these are obviously massive changes that are happening, and we've decided to dedicate multiple IOH sessions to this topic. And so, yeah, we're really fortunate to have Rem with us. I did ask him last minute, so just bear in mind that this is going to probably, I mean, depending on how much content he has, this is kind of likely going to be a Q&A. Maybe if you have some stuff prepared, Rem, feel free to start off with that. But yeah, without further ado, Rem, thank you so much for being here. Really do appreciate you. The mic is yours.
Yeah, by default it's Q&A, unless that leads into some questions for which I have some presentation material, which might not actually work because I think some of my presentations aren't working right now. So I'm watching the questions and let's see what people come up with.
Amazing. Yes. So I remember folks, we had various conversations on protocol economics. So feel free to fire away in terms of questions on that. Yeah, the chat is there. I did also want to use the whiteboard as well if people want to use that to put questions or share ideas, etc. I feel like it's a decent place to leverage as well. So yeah, folks, fire away. I see people typing. We might have to do a special section of words. Lol, pronounce watch. Oh my god, you guys are hilarious. Oh gosh. I'm happy to pronounce the okay, vitamin, schedule, garage, mobile, and herb. I don't know. I mean, that's how I pronounce it.
So we're going to get debate between vitamin and vitamin, schedule and schedule. So I don't know where herb came from. That's herb, surely.
Yeah. Oh, that's okay. That's very the aluminium is very clear. That's the Americans are wrong. Aluminum doesn't exist. It's not a thing. Boo. I'm sorry. How do you? I mean, you're I think you're from New Zealand, right? Right, Rem? How do you pronounce aluminium? Like the Brits?
Aluminium, yeah.
Yeah.
And
The correct way.
I remember buying the case and everything to build my own PC, and looking at it and thinking, yeah, what's wrong? Can't they even spell? And then I realized, oh, there's quite a lot of people who don't know how to spell it.
That's hilarious.
Because it had written on it aluminum, and it's like, what?
Yeah, I'm definitely on that side for sure. I agree.
It's amazing that this is at the moment taking center stage over any questions about the protocol. Obviously, everything on to do with the protocol, everyone has no questions about.
Yeah, it's hilarious that the pronunciation seems to be, as you say taking the maybe you did say you have some presentation materials, although I'm not sure if they're working, but if they are, maybe we could start with a bit of stuff that people could chew on, maybe to revisit some of the topics, and then that might prompt questions if you're open to that. But obviously open to Q&A as well, because I realize this is also quite last minute. So the choice is yours.
What's this? Unfortunately, the presentation software is basically running some of my own code, and I made some changes, an unrelated part of the code that needs propagating.
Which presentation software are you using? Just out of curiosity.
It's written by myself in Rust.
Wow, like you made a Google Sheets type software in Rust, or some sort of equivalent in Rust.
Well, it's not really presentation. It's interactive. It interactively draws diagrams, and it looks like it might now be running. Let's have a look. My container's been restarted. And our question is, which diagram should I bring up? I've actually got to them.
As Rem's doing that, just to confirm, yeah, let's put the questions in the chat, please. That would be amazing. I mean, had I been able to set up the whiteboard before, I would have directed everyone to the whiteboard for questions. But yeah, I'll have to figure out the permissions with Chairman at a later point, so I can be able to do that for future episodes. But actually, for reduction of confusion, Gemma, would you mind closing the whiteboard? That would be great. Or I think people have to leave, right? In order to stop the whiteboard, I think. Do you have any specific questions, Vince, that you'd like to share or ask? That would be awesome.
So I have started streaming the diagrams of what I presented before. So that triggers people's memories, then that's great. If not, I'm just waiting a moment or two. Quick show of hands or something. Who here remembers this diagram, and who here would like a little bit of a recap?
I do remember this from the last discussion on protocol economics, but I think nice gift, Vince. I like that. But I think it'd be great for everyone, or especially folks who maybe weren't able to attend that particular discussion, to just briefly go over it, and that should spark some memory and questions.
I'm going to go over this massively quickly, and you can stop me when you want. I'm not even going to necessarily describe all the boxes, but I'm saying, and this was from the second session, by the way. I can go back further and go back to the first session. The first session, for those who were there, I was talking about the needs of the various participants, including quite a bit of time spent on indexes. And then the second session, I went over the proposal itself. And I was basically started that discussion by doing a little bit of an explanation of how the protocol's currently working, right? How actually all of these pieces are working together to create something that's coherent and that's balanced. And one of the key objectives, if you like, when I was doing the protocol evolution work, was to combine maintaining all of the balance and the coherence that the original protocol had with some of the new ideas that were introduced by Graph Horizon, and then end up with, again, a target state that was, again, coherent and balanced. So I started off with this, which was basically showing the original protocol. And I'm watching the chat in case someone has some questions. As I said, key objective coming from this was maintaining the network balance. Right. So some of the key things, the issuance is being distributed to maintain indexing and network health. There are integrated role incentives. You can see, and I hope it's big enough for you, but you can see I've got a little whiteboard around the things that I'm currently talking about, right? So the integrated role incentives, it's a mix between how query freeze, curation, delegation, etc. works. It's also worth noting there's a new indexing fees mechanism that actually doesn't fit into this quite so well, right? It's a perfectly good mechanism in its own right. It's solving some key problems, but it's not integrated in the same way as everything else. So then move on to saying, or exploring the ways in which we're actually trying to enhance the incentive alignment for all of the participants of the network. It being a sort of in the Web3 world, basically you have to make sure that every participant is incentivized to act the right way. We know we've got a lot of great indexes. We also know that there are some disconnects, right? So one of the key disconnects is actually it's perfectly possible to earn indexing rewards in a way that's not really adding any value to the network, right? The network rewards are not really linked to the consumer value delivered. And we need to fix that. We need to fix that for everyone. We need to fix that for the consumers. Because if we don't fix it for the consumers, then we can't make the network grow in value. And that's what all of the indexes who are vision aligned want ultimately, that the network grows and therefore we get more work to do. So I'm not going to go into the detail. Started a bit late for that, but you can see it's kind of, I did walk through it at the time. I did also highlight, actually, there's a category of things that we are not yet incentivizing at all. And actually, we want to make sure that that's incentivized as well. And I see we have a question. Has there been any study on whether the current alignment is driving action? By that, I'm curious which actions see the most reaction by others. Large changes in delegation, large changes in curation, GRT price, etc. So we know there are cases where there is some perverse behavior, if you like, that we have indexes, for example, that regarded the risk of serving queries to be too high and not worth it, so they just turned off their ability to serve queries and just focused on getting indexing rewards. So that's not aligned with why we're actually indexing data in the first place. Hopefully that kind of answers the question. And then sort of the third key thing was actually we're building this for the long term. We want to make sure that we're building this in a way that we can sustain all the improvement continuously over time. There's a couple of aspects that are in the proposal related to this, really. So one of them is balancing issuance allocation for expanded network activity, right? Realizing actually we're trying to grow what we do, which is good for everyone, but we need to make sure that the issuance is balanced between those activities. That includes the knowledge graph, that includes expanded ways data services work, etc. And we need to do that in combination with establishing a long-term model for optimal network improvement. And can I share the presentation link here if possible? This being my own interactive software. One of the disadvantages is there is no presentation per se. I can turn specific slides into an SVG and give you the SVG if there are any particular images you want. But actually, and yeah, I was about to say so some of this is in the proposal itself, but actually the diagram you're looking at the moment is not. So you might be interested in that. Okay. So then, was that too fast, by the way? Is that kind of enough that you've got a flavor again of where we are? Any feedback? Is there more you want to go into explaining why we're doing it? Because it's now transitioning into what we're going to do about it. I'm going to keep going again. If I go back one step, and it's like, now it's okay. What are we doing about it? So how are we going to maintain the network balance? The proposal has in it saying that actually we want to transition from indexing rewards to a combination of what I call network payments and network rewards. So network payments are essentially the networks, the indexes being paid to perform work like doing indexing, like serving queries. And network rewards are more similar by comparison to indexing rewards currently, but to make up, if you like, the balance of the distribution of issuance, but the qualification criteria will shift slightly to include quality of service factors to make sure that the rewards are flowing to the indexes that are providing great service to the network. Now, I've got a question here. Is there a point in time when issuance goes away entirely? I doubt it, personally. It's a possibility. And the reason I say that is over the long term, as external income grows, our current dependency on issuance for the subsidy as currently provided goes away. It becomes replaced by a larger external income that makes it irrelevant. We then, through community governance, etc., have the option of what do we start directing that issuance towards instead. It's a legitimate possibility that we'll say, well, actually, the highest value we can do with that is just not issue it at all. My personal feeling is that there might be a component of that in terms of how the mechanism works. It's a level of detail. I don't really have a diagram to show. So there might be an element of actually the amount of issuance being reduced. But I doubt it'll go away, because I think there will always be incredibly valuable things we can use it for to grow the network. And I think our highest priority is growing the network. So if we have a really good use of issuance to grow and support the network, then that's what we're going to do with it. We're not going to not issue if we have a higher value thing to do with that issuance. And that led to another question. So what does larger external income mean? So if we think of users of our network who are paying for queries, eventually the model of the network, it's, the network is currently being nurtured and growing. The amount of work indexes are doing at the moment is disproportionately high to the amount of external work, and we expect and plan for that balance to change, to flip, right? That over time there will be a lot of external demand, a lot of queries, and it says that external demand as external queries are called as external income. I use the term external income to distinguish it clearly from being issuance, which you might think of internal income, right? The indexes currently are receiving predominantly internal income rather than external income. Hopefully that answers that question. Okay, I'll go to a few steps to that, but then the next point is the efficiently balanced fee cuts that incentivize network value creation. And I'm just going to pause again here because there's another question. So at no point are you envisioning consumers being required to pay for the true cost of indexing, correct? Actually, I am. I believe that the only sustainable long-term model that for the graph is that the price paid by consumers completely pays for the service provided. That doesn't mean there won't be, I think it's kind of, you can imagine it like this, and this is interesting nuance. When I said, I imagine there'll always be a use of issuance, right? So the issuance will always be concentrated on growing the network at the edges of what we're doing, increasing the demand. The established demand of the network long term for any established feature, if what the consumers pay isn't completely paying for the service delivered, we're kidding ourselves, right? That's not an economically sensible thing to claim. And you're allowed to keep asking questions, by the way. You say you promise to stop. So now the next, what specific areas of the proposal are most open to community feedback? That's an interesting question. I'm just going to read the next part of it while that's mulling over my mind. Are there any unresolved challenges where diverse perspectives could be particularly useful? Now I'm wondering, does anything stand out in particular? It's interesting because I think at the GIP 70 level proposal, the question really being asked is this directionally correct? Are we heading in the right direction? There are still a lot of details missing, right? And a lot of those details you will be very interested in, right? And I'm kind of asking you a little bit to say, okay, this direction is fine in principle, understanding that, of course, there are particular details that you would want to see, want to be involved in, want to have a say in before we roll them out, because this is going to affect the way issuance is distributed, amongst other things. So I actually think it's the next wave where perhaps there might be more more specifics, if you like, to engage with, rather than the conceptual level of, is this in principle correct? So at this stage, the question really is this in principle correct? And are there any unresolved challenges where diverse perspectives could be particularly useful? I'm actually, it's interesting because it's probably not something many people have enough visibility of to necessarily contribute. One of the biggest questions I am looking at is actually how to make knowledge curation on the knowledge graph work really well. And the reason that's an interesting question is because it involves, it's hard to not make it very subjective. It's hard to not make it very subjective because people will be contributing knowledge, content essentially, to the knowledge graph. And at some level, we need there to be, we will need there to be governance on what knowledge is, what contribution is valid, because there are rewards associated, but it's actually quite hard to do that in an objective way. So if you think that, and there may well be someone on this call who has a lot of insight into this area, who is specialized in this area, I would love to hear from you. And then, Vince, how are things balanced with global emissions when a new service is launched needing to be bootstrapped? And I take it this is not a question about global warming, but about issuance. So when a new service is launched needing to be bootstrapped, so actually as we stand at the moment, we don't actually have a lot of leeway to do a lot of new things, because the way that the transition is being planned as part of this proposal isn't fundamentally, or isn't making a big immediate change to what indexes are earning in terms of issuance. It's that change will happen gradually over time in response to external income growing, what I mentioned before, right? So as external income grows, the indexes are getting more income than they were previously, while the amount of the subsidy for that particular purpose tails away, and that then makes it potentially available for another purpose. So it's actually at this initial phase, there isn't that much scope to just start arbitrarily handing out issuance to more indexes. There is a self-balancing mechanism being worked on. Right? The details are something I'm working on proposing at the moment, where the balance between curation and other uses of locked GRT determine the distribution of issuance. But that So there is that self-balancing mechanism where curation can self-balance to direct issuance to various purposes versus self-stake of indexes and delegation. So I guess there are two versions of that answer depending on what you meant. So global warming has taken out. That disappoints someone, but not little me. So I'll move on then. Now, he's trolling, by the way. Good. Did I actually? I think maybe I actually skipped talking about the efficiently balanced fee cuts. Distracted slightly by the question. So the efficiently balanced fee cuts. At the moment, those of you who are aware, probably a reasonably large proportion of you, when query fees come in, there's basically two cuts from it. One's called protocol tax, and one's goes to the curator, and they're fixed. And this has sort of two problems, if you like. One, that it's fixed, and that actually it's quite clear when you analyze the life cycle of a subgraph or a substream or something produced by another data service, that the amount of that cut that's justified varies according to the usage and the stage in the life cycle of that, let's call it a data module. And a fixed cut doesn't really do that justice. The market needs to balance to find the market needs to self-balance to find the right level, because otherwise it's a little bit like having a clock that's broken. Yes, it's correct twice per day, but most of the time it's not that great. Now, there's another question I see. As roles like curators and sponsors evolve, how does the graph, the ecosystem as a whole, plan to educate existing participants and onboard new ones into these roles effectively? And that's actually a really good and important question. One of the reasons we actually are keeping the term curator is because of the brand identity that the term curator has. So someone who was previously a curator or someone who'd previously heard about curation and the graph could still come back to the graph and still find this thing called curation with some differences, right? So they'll have more options on what they can curate on, and the mechanism does change, but this conceptual continuity, right? We're not suddenly throwing away this concept of curation and doing something else. I could have easily called it something other than curator, and previous versions of my proposal did actually. And that's probably not completely answering the question, but and I'm not sure I have a complete answer. How do we plan to educate existing participants? But what is actually really interesting about me is actually the new categories of participation this opens up. That the new model of curation in particular allows more people to be involved with the graph and support things that they are doing than the current categories. So it's expanding the people to whom the graph might be of interest. So why is it so important to keep this concept going? Because there are, I forgot the number, it's more than 1 million. There are more than 1 million people that know what curation is fundamentally at a certain level, and we don't want to start from zero. You want all of those people, the industry who who don't spend a lot of time looking at the graph, but who know that there's a sync curation to still have that, for that idea to still be supported. Now, how will we progress on implementing GRP 0070? Oh, skipping a bit. Scroll back. Be communicated to participants. Will there be regular updates or checkpoints for community review? I expect so. Let me skip actually in this. I'm just going to zoom through this into this, right? You can see even at this level, there are already another 6 GIPs planned. Actually, I already know at the next level after that, I've sort of got 2 tentative ones named, and a third one I kind of know has to be there, but hasn't been named. Each GIP goes through the community, goes through review, etc. So automatically, this process involves community engagement, and we're hoping to maximize that and keep you fully part of the journey. And shall we set up a recurring IRH segment on this as we get closer to implementation feedback? Absolutely happy to do that. I'm trying quite hard. Actually, it's I'm actually working on GRP 76 on this diagram at the moment. I'm hoping to, as soon as possible, get that out to the community. I imagine when I do, it would make a lot of sense to have an IRH on the topic very soon afterwards. Evolution watch, yes. It's interesting, Mickey, you say exactly 0 people who are solely curators. I'm not sure if that's true or not. That might be the norm. But if it's a norm, I don't think that necessarily aligns with the original intent of curation. I think it's become a side effect of the activity happening on the graph at the moment, and therefore who is actually currently incentivized to curate. To some extent, that might change a little bit over time anyway, even if we did nothing, if external demand grows. As curation evolves into or migrates to the new model, actually, I think there will be people who are solely curators. Not that they have to be, right? I think people can be any combination of roles, but it won't be so strongly tied. And it might be that some of the curators are also editors on the graph, on the knowledge graph, for example, rather than indexers. So what other role they are taking is also likely to change. So the curation should be a known algorithm or AI agent. It's I'd be interested in what sense you're using the term curation. So if you can type that, I'll come back to that. So where are we at in the governance process with these GRPs? So the perception at the moment is that actually community is very receptive of this. GIP 0070, I'm planning to turn into a candidate and take to the Graph Council. All of the subsequent GRPs, obviously, they haven't even been published yet. I'm aware, actually, we're now suddenly running out of time as well, despite the slightly slow start, because I didn't immediately have the presentation ready, so I don't know if we should. What do you want me to do? Do you want me to try and answer these questions, or do we want to try and wrap up a little bit?
I'm very gracious that you've given your time. So it's kind of up to you. I mean, ideally, if we can get through some of the questions, like maybe we'll cap the questions for now, so they don't keep coming through, and then we could try to get through all of them. I mean, there's only a few left, if I'm not mistaken. I can get rid of mine as well, just if you want to make it less. And then we finish off. It's kind of great that as you said, we started a bit slow, but like people seem to have really started to chew on the topic now that we have these presentations, we have these visuals and stuff, which is great. Feel free to power through, and if you want me to get rid of my question, I can, just so we can cap off. It's up to you.
Yep. Okay. So Josh asks, where's the 1 million people know curation from? So I have to apologize. I can't remember the precise detail, but essentially, if I recall correctly, one of the exchanges or some other participant in the Web3 space actually had a training module or program that people could go through, which explained the way the graph work, and over 1 million people actually completed that training module and therefore are presumed to know about curation. So this is not, they've somewhere seen the word curation. It's actually a large number of people that became pretty familiar with the concept at some stage. And yes, that's a much smaller number than the number of people currently curating. And don't forget today's secret POP phrase. I'm probably going to miss being able to get it myself now, because my experience is it isn't actually open until 𝗨𝗲, but we'll see. Mickey's saying I'll leave it, but I would suggest that this is what we assumed in our current protocol, and it did not play out the way we thought. So is it a good bet for us to assume that curators will hold a distinct role in the next iteration of the protocol, when our past experience shows that didn't work last time? You say you're happy to move on, but actually I'm happy to answer this. It's not really an assumption that we are strongly relying on, is probably the first point. But the second point is, well, actually I think it's actually pretty clear and compelling. When I talk to other people, it might be other people who are around longer than myself, which includes yourself, Mickey, disagree. But I know Yaniv, as one of the 𝗨𝗲 founders, is quite clear that in his mind, the curation we've got is not what was originally intended. 𝗨𝗲𝗂𝗀, yes, I think that might well have been it, and I'm not sure if it's still running or not. And Mickey thought that was for delegation or curation. I can't answer. And next question, I think the people who would recall anything from 𝗨𝗲𝗂𝗀 to 0% and 100%, it's possible. And don't give up on your popes. It's still going, apparently. And some people are hopping, and the questions have ended, and it's only a minute past. So thank you very much. I'll just mention briefly, of course, people asking, when am I going to come back with more details? And the answer to that was, there's more GRPs about to be published. However, if you just want me to still do more discussion on just what's been published so far, I'm very happy to do that. If it probably helps if you give some indication of actually what is it you'd like me to explore in more depth, and we can see if we can schedule that on an IOH and go through that.
All righty. Any final words, Rem, before we wrap up?
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Amazing. I just want to say a massive thank you to you for joining us on today's IOH. You saved us today with a fantastic conversation that people have got a lot of value from. Enson just commented here and said, nice conversation. And before Miki left, she said, thank you. And yeah, we're getting some more thanks in the comment from in the comments there from Gemma and Vince. So thank you, Rem. This was fantastic. And as you said, we're going to circle back on this. So I'll message you in Slack, and we'll try and settle on a date for another IOH episode on the topic. And also a special thank you to each and every one of you for joining us today. We really do appreciate you and your patience with us. This turned out to be a great conversation. Don't forget to get your POAPs. It does work. We have checked it. But if you have any challenges, of course, just message me and I'll try and sort that for you. And without further ado, I bid you all farewell and a wonderful rest of your week. Take care, everyone, and we'll see you again same time next week. Bye-bye.